I'm here today in sunny Northern California at the Lucid Motors headquarters, and I'm standing with a beautiful 2025 Lucid Gravity. It's their second vehicle. The Lucid Air came out a few years ago. Now they're launching their second vehicle, which is a 7-passenger SUV, long range, EPA range rated at 450 miles, depending on what trim you get it in, up to 450 miles, up to 828 horsepower, 0 to 60 in 3.5 seconds. What every soccer mom needs in a SUV or sort of like minivan-ish SUV, you need that 3.5 second 0 to 60 to get the kids to practice on time. But I'm really not here to talk too much about performance. That's because I'm out here today to charge this guy. And I'm going to charge it on both a Tesla Supercharger and a 350 kilowatt EVgo DC fast charger. Now the vehicle can accept up to 400 kilowatts. So I'm not going to be maxing out its full potential here, but I want to see how well it charges on a Tesla Supercharger because this guy has a native NACS port. It's one of the first electric vehicles to come on the market here in North America with a native NACS port. And Lucid had to do some witchcraft with the vehicle to make it charge well on Tesla Superchargers because they have a 400 volt charging system, whereas the Lucid vehicles, the Air and also the Gravity, has a 900 volt battery pack system. And the Lucid Air doesn't charge well on Tesla Superchargers. It charges really well on CCS stations, but on Tesla Superchargers, it only charges at around 50 kilowatts. So this vehicle, launching with a native NACS port, was engineered to be able to charge much faster. How much faster? I'm going to find out really soon because I'm heading to a Tesla Supercharger in a few minutes and do a full 0 to 100% charge recording. And then later in the day, I'm going to have another Gravity and I'm going to charge it from 0 to 100% on a 350 kilowatt EVgo charging station. So before I get into charging the vehicles, I'm going to first take this car for a drive with Emad Dlala, who is the Senior VP of Powertrains for Lucid. So let's get into it. All right, so I'm in a 2025 Lucid Gravity with Emad Dlala, who is the Senior VP of Powertrain for Lucid Motors. If you follow State of Charge at all, you'll know Emad because he's been kind enough to come on and talk about Lucid products. Emad made it a point to allow me to come out here to California and charge the Gravity before the official media event, which is next week. They invited Kyle from Out of Spec and myself out here, and that's what we're going to do today. We're going to charge a couple of cars. We're going to charge them on Tesla Superchargers and also on CCS DC fast chargers. And there's a reason why we need to do this on both types of charging stations. We always like to test it out on the cars that can charge on NACS stations, but this car in particular, and that's because it's one of the first electric vehicles sold in North America that has a native NACS port. That's not a Tesla vehicle. And that's what we're going to talk about here. Emad, thanks for coming on again. First up, this car's got a native NACS port. Please talk a little bit about the challenges of transitioning from CCS to NACS in one of your vehicles.
Well, thank you, Tom, for being here. Remember, our first time we met, we actually in person. You came also. You were the first to charge the Lucid Air, so you are now the first to charge Lucid Gravity with Kyle.
Yes,
which is fantastic. Really, I think that shows, your really passion. Understanding. We bring journalists who have knowledge and background of what the charging experience should be. And for us, of course, with the Lucid Air, we produced a vehicle that back then was compatible with the public charging networks, and it was clear to us that CCS back then was the main, charge protocols and a charging standard that we have to, start with. Now, with the NACS, of course, transition that happened recently, we were put in this position. The Gravity was already in development. It was 2 years in development. And the best charging network in the US opened up to other non-Tesla chargers. And they wanted to standardize not just the charging through Tesla, but also the next charge port in general to be standard. And they had, of course, some conditions to that, including compatibility to their charging network, transition all vehicles in the future to NACS. So for example, all model year 2027 and beyond, they have to be NACS, or otherwise Tesla wouldn't be allowing us to actually access the charging network.
Is that just, so let me interrupt. Is that just Lucid's rules,
no,
or is that for the industry?
No, it's for the industry.
Okay.
It's for the industry. So that means we had to already make this decision super quickly for Gravity as a platform, because that's before we launch it, we want to have a consistent platform in this. So we actually took a huge decision to stay. Our development vehicles, although they are in CCS, we're going to launch with NACS. So we changed the charge port from the front to the rear within months. Which
is no small thing. I think people don't realize. I have so many of my followers say, why don't they all just put their charge ports on the back? It's not, it's actually very complicated and costs a ton of money. It creates havoc with.
It's very complicated, even during the inception of a product. When you developing a new vehicle in general, very complicated in general. But to do it when the program is literally 2/3 of its development cycle is absolutely, challenging, because routing all the wires, the communication protocols, and then on top of that, we had to upgrade our boosting capability. The compatibility to Tesla charging network was not sufficiently good in terms of performance with the old hardware. Now we, of course, took a step back and said, what should we do? How could we do it?
And let me interrupt you, sorry, but let me interrupt, because a lot of people don't understand this. Lucid's vehicles have very high voltage battery packs. They're a 900 volt battery pack system, pretty much the highest of any electric vehicle on the market today. So Tesla Supercharger network is a 400 volt based system. So the Lucid Air and other 900 volt or 800, 900 volt battery pack EVs don't charge well on Tesla's system. So now not only did you have to move the charge port and have all the new hardware, you had to figure out how to make this thing charge fast on a 400 volt system.
Yes.
So how did you do that?
First of all, voltage compatibility is something really much more complex than, for example, current compatibility. Sometimes you can increase current and power through increasing the current, which means sizing your cables. Current is more like bus bar, cross-section, resistance, and so on, which is easier. It increases weight and so on. But to be voltage compatible, you have to really do a step down or step up voltage mechanism. Transformers have been used in the industry, which is very large, very cumbersome and inefficient. Power electronics, which is another way to basically step down voltage. Semiconductor devices these days are used to basically use it as a buck or boost converter to increase voltage. But that also would require you to add hardware in the vehicle to do it. Like Porsche Taycan, they have, for example, this separate box to up voltage. The Lucid Air, we have this Wonder box, which is a separate box also to up the voltage up with from 400 volt to 900 volt, but that's limited to 50 kilowatt. 50 kilowatt was the compatibility needed for EVgo's legacy and charge point bank then. We never thought Tesla would open their some of the competitive advantage, and thankfully they care for the environment, they care for the transition, and their mission is to bring EVs to the majority of car owners. And we had to jump into that, and for us 400 volt systems, is something we're familiar how to deal with it. But for an existing platform, the best solution for us was to look into our drive unit. So in 2019, when we decided with Air, we actually patented how to use a drive unit, an inverter and a motor to up or boost the voltage. Basically your inverter, which is traction inverter, which is driving converter for your motor, is similar in the concept in the switching devices to a boost converter. However, it's the connections and the routing of the wires is completely different. So we have to redesign our motor and specifically inverter to be compatible to be both driving motor and regenerative drive unit, as well as of course boosting unit. And then the question is how much power now? It's like you can do it. Can you do 50 kilowatt, 100 kilowatt, 150 kilowatt to 100 kilowatt? And Tom, we are very ambitious, and we're very happy to say that we achieved it over 220 kilowatt with our drive unit continuously, going from 0% to over 60%, achieving 200 kilowatt plus in a very flat, robust charging curve.
And that's on Tesla Superchargers and 400 volt systems, but it charges a lot faster on the 1000 volt CCS native, but now they're even getting native NACS plugs, some of those stations like the Iona networks coming out with native NACS plugs. But the vehicle can actually charge it 400 kilowatts.
Right? Yeah. So the peak charging, we did charge it in a public Iona 400 kilowatt, a very nice charging curve. You will be hopefully today actually conducting that charging session with native and non-native. As I mentioned earlier, Tesla's supercharging network in V3, which is 450, 470 volt system, is the most widespread, and we have to be compatible with that non-native charging voltage system. But we know the future. Gravity is designed to be compatible with the current infrastructure, but the future-proof. V4 with Tesla is coming. Iona is coming with 1000 volt.
Other networks too.
And of course, Electrify America still plays a huge role. Their network improved significantly in the past year or so. And we're gonna do a U-turn. You can take the right, I think. And we have to offer amazing charging convenience, access to the Tesla V3, plus of course for those who need that speed of charging, Electrify America and Iona 1000 volt charging networks. This vehicle will be the fast charging EV in the USA, North America.
Well, I'm going to find that out today.
The number of kilowatt hours you add per minute, as well as the mileage you add per minute. Because this SUV, it doesn't only charge fast, it's super efficient. And it has a relatively, nice size of battery to allow you to really have the range. Fusing range with charging speed is the magical formula. Some people, of course, and some companies prefer charging, some prefer only range. This vehicle really offers both, and this is the only vehicle that would offer both, and hopefully you will do both 70 miles per hour charging or a range test, and then you will do your charging tests today to prove what we are
claiming.
I'm claiming.
Well, it's a claim until we prove it. So, 100%. And Kyle and I are out here to do that. So one of the things I wanted to talk to you about charging curves, and you talk about the fastest charging EV, out there. And I had always maintained that the Air was, because the Air could add, and I've documented this in many times, 200 miles of driving range in 12 minutes. But in order to do that, you had to plug in at like nearly zero. A lot of people don't feel comfortable driving the cars down to zero. And then when I just charged the new 2025 Porsche Taycan, you still beat it. The Air still beat the Taycan in adding 200 miles from zero, barely, by like a minute or so. But if you plugged in at any other point in the charge curve, 10%, 20%, the Taycan would add more miles because your charge curve is real fat in the beginning, kind of like Tesla's, and like a lot of OEMs do this, like for a couple of minutes they give you peak power, then it goes down, whereas the Taycan kind of goes up and does this. Talk a little bit about charging curves, about giving people a fat charging curve in the beginning and then ramping down versus kind of something a little bit more chunky. Am I going to see this hold high power longer than an Air?
Yeah, much longer than Air. You will see it, and hopefully you will drive your also comparisons with data to lay over the charging curve.
I will, with the Taycan.
With that.
I'm going to.
And including the Taycan too.
Yeah, I'm going to.
You know, when you put the 400 kilowatt up there, it would still make the charging curve look going down. But how much down? Is it still larger, all up than others? And it's all relative, right?
Yeah.
So,
but let me ask you, if you didn't go so high in the beginning, could you then hold it longer?
We can't.
Yeah.
And this is the misconception.
Okay.
Actually, here is the thing. You actually, to charge faster in the beginning, it helps you to charge faster even at the end.
Okay.
You need to warm up the battery. At high state of charge, the battery only accepts charge if it's hot. There is a middle. There is in the beginning, you need to heat it up. In the beginning, you need to heat it up. The middle, you need to cool it. By the end, you need to keep it hot. Seriously. And it's
Try explaining that to people that are transitioning from gas.
Yeah, lithium plating. And this is all, of course, you know, as a consumer, as a customer, you don't worry about this. Is all.
But the car's BMS does that.
Yeah, all the BMS does that. But in general, it doesn't help you at all to offset or to get a more charging curve power at highest state of charge if you reduce the power at low state of charge. That doesn't change. Actually, as I said, it actually usually helps you the opposite, to warm up the battery quickly.
Interesting.
So you can accept a high state of charge.
And you talked about lithium plating. This such high state of charge, 400 kilowatts. Should your customers be concerned with the fact that you're stressing the pack too much, charging it at 400 kilowatts? You know, they should be worried about battery life.
We completed all our battery life validation with this charging curve, full life battery validation before we release it to anyone. Of course, we start with computer simulations, which is really gets you 90% there. Then with cell validation, module validation, and then pack validation. So it's a completely validated a lifetime warranty and even beyond. And of course, as a data-driven company with our OTA capability, we learn more and we adjust as needed. However, no concerns with lithium plating or degradation. Of course, there is always some balance, but this added, you know, charging rates, it doesn't impact you know, the life or degradation of the battery. The battery cell is designed and optimized to accept this with the cooling system we have. So it's a really systems optimization approach that we used in order for us to make sure all the attributes of the cell, including charging rate, energy density, and energy life, safety, are well balanced within the boundaries of acceptance.
And the battery cells you're using for this are different than the cells that are in the Air, right? These are the
completely
the latest generation. They're still Panasonic 2170 cells, but they have the highest energy density. I think 800 watt hours per liter.
Around 800 watt hour per liter. But of course, you know, that's a great point, because the magic of this cell is to combine both charging power rate, charging, you know, powers with energy density. So range and power combined and fused in one cell. And it is very different generation, a new generation of cells from Panasonic, exclusively and designed for Lucid. Together we collaborated with Panasonic very closely. You know, if you have a chance to tour our labs today, I'll show you some of the, you know, the work that team has done, and we will share more details about what we did in the cell as we gain, you know, more time in the future to release, and we can't release everything, momentarily about the technology we developed in Gravity. But it's a unique chemistry that we developed with Panasonic.
Okay, well, I'm looking forward to seeing how well they charge. I'm going to be doing Tesla Supercharger and a CCS today. Maybe if we have time, I'll chat with you after that. But one last thing I wanted to ask you about, we talked a little bit about the fact that this is a 900 volt battery system. And I know you can't speak to what other companies are doing, but I'm a little surprised more companies haven't come out with it. We have the Hyundai Kia group with the 800 volt system, Porsche Taycan. There's not a lot of companies that have transitioned to 900 volt battery system. Does it cost a lot more to do it? Why do you think we're not seeing more companies coalesce around a 900 volt battery system?
I mean, engineering a new product is not simple. You have this really huge heritage, for example, or legacy of 400 volt knowledge, supply chain, your equipment even in the labs have to be upgraded. Everything have to be, the transition. For Lucid, we were lucky, right? We started immediately with 900 volt system. Some companies invested in that and transitioned because they have more willingness to do it. In terms of BOM cost, which is bill of material, how much the products cost, it's actually is not a lot different. Few $100s, which can be a lot for certain platforms. If it's a high volume, cheap or inexpensive vehicles, few $100s can matter. However, as I said, mainly it's driven by the willingness, the engineering prowess, the expertise, the supply chain to transition, and of course the infrastructure. The infrastructure is important. In the US here, we transition into that 1000 volt charging. It works really well. I think there would be more appetite as that transition goes up. We can go up.
So basically, you said everybody else is lazy. That's what you just basically said. Their willingness. It's only a couple $100s per car. I mean, there has to be money.
It can be even $500, $400, $600, $300. It depends on the platform. What's your size of the inverter and power and so on. Really.
But I mean, the average EV in the US costs like $60,000. So I mean, that doesn't. I know it's not my $500, but
it's well worth it.
It seems like it's well worth it because the big differentiator in the 900 volt systems, the advantage is charging. Right. That's really. And the 900 volt battery systems. I mean, you look at the EGMP, the Taycan, and they're the best charging vehicles on the market.
Charging.
And you go over. Look what's happening in China now.
Yes, exactly.
It's nuts.
Exactly, and And the voltage it plays a huge role in the losses, right? I square R power is current time is voltage. If you increase voltage, you reduce the current with using the same power. Or if you want to keep the same current, you can double the power if you double the voltage. And then you basically I don't say that it's only charging that benefits from voltage, but also actually efficiency in general, the gains. But yes, charging, I would say, number one factor. But there's some efficiency gain to reduction of your bus bar sizes and your connectors and many of these.
Weight, right?
Weight,
so there's some weight gains
for sure.
Efficient. That's great. I'm just surprised at this point. It's 2025. You guys came out with it, Porsche came out with it, and then Hyundai, and then it's like, okay, nobody else seems to be doing any transition. So I think how you put it, willingness is probably a big part of it. That the 400 volt systems are good enough.
Exactly.
It's good enough.
It's good enough. It works.
Works with it. Which that's no way to have a competitive advantage.
But for Lucid, of course, we new company, right? We know that we have to make the best technology. We have to build the best cars, best products over there to be successful as a new company. Otherwise,
might turn in here.
And we take huge pride and courage really to put our heart and soul in the developing the latest and greats and make it with small team really. you know. So I think the transition will happen to high voltage. It's inevitable. All, you know, this is no question. It's just a matter of time.
Oh, straight.
Yeah.
I thought we had to pull in here.
Yeah. We used to be actually having some suites in those buildings that long ago, but yes, but it's
okay.
Next thing.
Yeah. Well, listen, thanks a lot. I'm down to 3% now on this Gravity. So I'm going to drop you off at headquarters, and then I'm going to head to the Tesla Supercharger and charge there first. I'm going to do a full 0 to 100 charge recording. Then you have another vehicle, I think, set up for me that's going to be at 0. Then we're going to do 0 to 100 on a 350 kilowatt
I will meet you at the EVgo station before you leave.
I would have liked to have done it on a 400 kilowatt station, but Kyle did one.
Yes.
So I'm going to grab his data, and he's going to grab my data from the 350, and we'll share the charge recordings.
It's good to have a diverse, you know, types of data. I mean, it would be good for our customers to know what's the difference in charging times between 350 kilowatt versus 400 kilowatts.
Versus Tesla Superchargers.
Yes, versus Tesla Superchargers.
You know,
it's
so
really good.
We'll have all three.
Three levels, yeah,
Which
awesome.
is really good. Listen, as I put it in park here, thank you very much. I appreciate it, and I'll see you a little bit later in the day.
Thank you so much, Tom. Appreciate it. Thank you.
State of Charge is powered by Qmerit, North America's premier installer of electric vehicle charging equipment. After I've helped you decide which charger to buy, follow the link in the description of my videos and have Qmerit install it. And if you do follow that link, Qmerit will waive the $150 installation deposit. But this is an exclusive offer for State of Charge followers. So in order to get that offer, you must follow the link in the description of my videos. All right, so I am here at a Tesla V3.5 supercharger. So these are the V4 supercharger chargers, but it has the V3 supercharger cabinet. So Tesla calls these V3.5 superchargers. But to be honest with you, the way the Gravity works, it's not going to charge any better than it will at a V3 supercharger. So it really doesn't matter if I was at a true V3 or a V3.5. So I'm going to plug in now. I'm at 0% of the last maybe 4 miles at 0% because like the Air, the Gravity has a nice low end buffer. Once you get down below 0, you have a couple of miles and you do get full power. Unlike a lot of EVs where it drops into turtle mode and you just kind of hobble along the last few miles, Lucids give you pretty much full power until they're out. But we're very close to being out here. I think maybe a couple of miles and we were done. So now I'm going to plug it in and we are going to record the full 0 to 100% charging session and see how well the Gravity charges on Tesla Supercharger. And the Gravity has plug-in charge. So all I need to do is plug the vehicle in and it'll start charging. At least it should. Let's see. It's communicating. And there we go with the green light. So we're charging now. Let's hop in the car now. I'm going to talk to Blake about charging strategy. All right, Blake, so I plugged in and you have plug and charge. So it seems like it took 3 or 4 seconds, but started charging. So we're charging now. Let me see what we're pulling here.
Still ramping up. Ramping up,
okay. 204, 205, we're getting there. What should I expect?
You should expect 220. Let's see what we're getting here. 208 is not the full vehicle capability.
But we're at the lower pack voltage.
We are.
Now, right?
This seems to be limited by station right now for whatever reason. So we are at a lower pack voltage, but we We have a boost charging. We're a 900 volt architecture charging on a 400 volt charging station. So actually what the station sees is just a flat, like basically the max voltage of the station is being pushed into our charge port. And then we're converting that to our 900 volt battery pack.
So that's how the boost works.
That's how the boost works.
Okay, so you would expect 220 all the time?
I would expect 220 at this state of charge. As you can see, we have the message charging power limited by station displayed. So
interesting. There's nobody else here plugged in. This is a big Tesla Supercharger site, but this happens. This is real world.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, we get limited power all the time. So I think we're up to 210 now. So well, no, now down to 209. So yeah, we're slightly limited. That's interesting. But this is what happens in the real world. You're lucky if you get a station that gives you the full power that your vehicle is calling for. But I like the fact that Lucid tells you if it's the car or if it's because otherwise I'd be saying, well, maybe the battery isn't warm enough now. Maybe that's why it's not taking the full amount. But it's the car's is telling us that it's the station.
Absolutely, yeah. At this state of charge, there's a very wide window in which we can accept the full 220 or so kilowatts into our battery pack.
So, but in reality, 210 to 220, it doesn't make that much of a difference. You know, I mean, you want to get every kilowatt that you can. Don't get me wrong. Of course. But, you know, I think people stress too much about, like, not getting absolutely the maximum they can. Now, we're doing a charging test here, so we want the maximum just so we could talk about it to people.
And I want to talk about plug and charge as well. I want to talk more about the convenience aspect. Like, you plugged in, we have a charge port, rear left, very convenient for the supercharger location. You just plug in. You don't need an app, you don't need a credit card. We're all about convenience with a Lucid Gravity charging experience. So we offer plug and charge not only on Tesla, but also at Electrify America. So as a customer, you sign up with the Lucid wallet, you provide a credit card to Lucid, and you have one account, one contract certificate in the car, and you can plug and charge at Electrify America and Tesla with one account.
And does the Gravity or the Air come with any free unlimited charging programs?
No, it's not a free unlimited charging. It is paid charging.
Thank you. I hate free charging programs for electric vehicles. Really, I really do. I think they're like the bane of my existence, because I pull up to a charging station and there's 20 ID4s there, and the people all live within 5 miles, and they could charge at home and they don't. So I know the whole, pretty much the whole industry, you guys included. We're offering these free unlimited charging programs, but most everybody now is realizing it's better, if we're going to incentivize charging, let's incentivize home charging and not public charging.
And that's absolutely the strategy we're following. You know,
how long can I expect it to hold maximum current?
So we can, on a 0 to 100 like this, you can expect it to hold maximum current, which is about 500 amps at the charge port, for upwards of 15 minutes.
Okay.
So yeah, that is enough to add, you know, that's all the way till 50, close to 50% state of charge.
Yeah. So if we're 10 kilowatt less for 15 minutes, that's going to amount to 2.5 less kilowatt hour in the pack. Than if we would have got the 220. So while it makes a difference, that's what I'm just saying. You know, it's not that critical. I see people sweat over that when they go to a charger. They want to see that number. You know, like particularly, you know, a lot of people I'll see at Electrify America chargers, and they'll be like, oh, you know, I usually get 220 kilowatts if it's like a Hyundai Ioniq 5 or something, and they're like, I'm only getting 190 today, and I'm like, it really isn't going to make that big of a difference. It's probably your battery temperature, you know, or the station could be limiting, but you don't know with that because it doesn't tell you. But so talk a little bit about, you know, charging strategy with Gravity. You know, this is a big step now that the car was designed for NACS. It's got a NACS. It's got the NACS inlet. You know, what's Lucid's overall charging strategy as far as like communicating to customers too about charging? Like, could you just talk a little bit about that? Yeah.
So really with Gravity, it's all about charging convenience. So with a native NACS port positioned at the rear left of the vehicle with plug and charge on the Tesla network, we have thousands of Tesla Superchargers that we have access to with a great charging rate. Even when it's limited by station, we're still pulling great charging here. But we still have access to other networks as well. We have plug and charge access to Electrify America. We can access with adapters. We provide adapters with the vehicle.
And which adapter do you know? Which manufacturer do you guys deal with? Have you announced that, or
I don't know that I can talk about that,
okay.
but it's a Lucid branded product.
Okay,
which we will do 1,000 volts, 500 amps.
Okay, well, hopefully, because your car's going to request it.
Absolutely, yeah.
So we're holding it right around 210 kilowatts. The station's limiting us 10 kilowatts. I don't really care about that. But this vehicle can charge a lot faster than this. Almost twice as fast.
Yeah.
This will pull 400 kilowatts.
Yes. So if you have a 1,000 volt charging station, the peak charging power of this vehicle is 400 kilowatts. We've seen it on several stations, and it's very exciting for us that we're seeing more and more of these 400 kilowatt stations popping up around the country. We're seeing Iona opening a lot of stations, running Alpatronic hardware.
The Mercedes network.
Mercedes network.
Electrify America started now.
They have. And we're really excited about Tesla V4 cabinets. You mentioned that we're at a V3.5 Tesla Supercharger station where we have V4 posts, but still the V3 cabinets with the 400 volt. So we're really excited about Tesla rolling out 1,000 volt capable cabinets where we should be able to see these 400 kilowatt speeds with our vehicle at Tesla Supercharger sites like this.
And it's going to hold high power for a while, right? Like more than, from what I heard, we'll find out next, because next we're going to an EVgo charger, a 350 kilowatt EVgo charger, and we're gonna pin that thing for a while. I wonder if this station has ever, had requested max power for as long as we're going to be requesting max power. And about how long do you think that's going to be? How long are we going to pull 350 plus?
Yeah, so what we've seen in our testing is if you have a let's start by talking about the 400 kilowatt stations. So if you have a 400 kilowatt charging station, we can hold 400 kilowatts from like 0 to 10%, and then we can hold over 350 kilowatts, all the way up to close to 30% state of charge. So it's not just a blip to massive power. It is a really fat charge curve with huge area under it. Well, the Air adds 200 miles of driving range in about 12 minutes. I've done it a few times on videos, and the Gravity is going to be slightly faster than that, right? Is what you guys, and that's saying something, because the Gravity isn't as efficient as the Air. So to add 200 miles faster, you don't just have to get a little bit more kilowatt hours into the pack. You've got to pump a lot more kilowatt hour into the pack. We're so proud of the work that all the engineering team has done on this huge charge curve. I mean, obviously this vehicle is still incredibly efficient, but it's an SUV. It's a larger vehicle, so we don't get as many miles per kilowatt hour as on the Air. But like you say, we still onboard 200 miles of range on a 400 kilowatt charger. We have shown that we onboard 200 miles of EPA rated range in under 11 minutes.
That's just bonkers.
It's astonishing, and it's class leading.
And I'm interested to see how long it takes to add 300 miles of driving range, because the range is 450 miles EPA. So 300 miles, you should still be cranking, because you're not at 80% state of charge yet. So while you won't be pulling 350 kilowatts, I'm hoping you're pulling a chunky amount of power, all the way up to 300 miles of added driving range. Because don't forget, that's a solid 3 to 4 hours of driving. If you're on a very long road trip, probably 4 hours of driving. So you need after 4 hours, you need to get out and stretch the legs and so forth. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to that. Both. I mean, this was the one that, quite honestly, and now we've dropped down now. Oh, no,
we're still
right, for a minute it was a 208, but it was still
taking
max amount.
Everything the station can give us.
Yeah.
31%. And we're going to be here for a little while.
Yeah, well, we're going to do the full charge recording, and I'll analyze that, and I'm going to compare it to the charge recording on the EVgo station that we go to next.
Yeah.
And I'm also going to grab Kyle Connor's data from the 400 kilowatt charge point station. He didn't compare it to that, so we'll compare all three, so people kind of know, you know, this is what the Gravity can do if you're at a Tesla Supercharger, if you're at a 350 kilowatt charger, and if you're at a 400 kilowatt charger, which, as you mentioned, more and more of them are popping up. And there's a new network that's going to be coming out in the US that's going to have a lot of 400 kilowatt DC fast chargers soon. I'm going to have a video out coming really soon on this new network that has the potential to make a huge impact on public charging infrastructure in the US. A huge impact. So more on that really soon on State of Charge. But listen, Blake, thank you very much for your time here. I appreciate it. We're going to sit here now and ride this whole thing out, and then I'm going to do it in time lapse and show people what it did on the Tesla Supercharger. Was still pulling the full amount. So and we've already added, you know, 136 miles of EPA rated range, and we haven't been here long. I mean, we've been here about as long, if this was at a convenience store, of me, you know, getting out, using a restroom, maybe grabbing a coffee, slowly walking back to the car, and that's about it. And I added, you know, almost 150 miles.
Absolutely, and bear in mind, this vehicle is, we're not running the Aero wheels here. We're running the 22, 23-inch wheels. Looks awesome, but this is EPA rated range on these wheels. We can pull even more range per time on the Aero wheels.
Okay, listen, thanks a lot. Let's ride this out now, but I appreciate you coming on and chatting to State of Charge community.
Yeah, thank you.
And now let's take a look at that charging session on paper in the graphs that I usually make. But I'm not going to do a deep analyzing of the graphs in this video. The video is going to be long enough with my interviews and my visit out there. I'm going to follow up in about a week and have my two charge recordings, the one at the Tesla Supercharger and the one on the EVgo 350 kilowatt station, which you're going to see next here in this video. I'm going to do a deep dive into those two charging sessions. But for this video, I'm going to at least post the charts that I made, so if somebody wants to grab a screenshot of them and take a look at them deeper, you're able to do that. So let's take a look at what this charging session looked like on paper. All right, first up, let's take a look at the charging curve. You can see here it's pulling about 210 kilowatt right from plugging in all the way up to about 42% state of charge. Again, we were limited by the charging station. The Gravity should have been pulling 220 kilowatts, and it did for Kyle Connor's session, which I'm going to talk about in a future video. He got the full 220 for basically the same period that I did. So the vehicle was definitely limited by the station. It then slowly ramps down till about 75% state of charge, at which time it's taking in 150 kilowatt. And then from 75% down, it has a more aggressive drop off to 100% state of charge. And now let's take a look at the charging curve and the time to charge charts overlaid. With these, we've got the charging time in minutes on the x-axis, and on the y-axis we have charging power to the left and also state of charge to the right. Now the charging curve is similar to what we just saw, but it looks a little compressed because now we added time. You could see here that after about 17 minutes, the charging power started to drop off a little bit. And then after 31 minutes, that's when it really drops off. And that's when it was at 75% state of charge. And now when we take a look at the time to charge curve here, you can see the vehicle gets to 50% state of charge from dead zero in under 20 minutes. So that's really amazing for a car that can go 450 miles. Again, we're talking EPA rated range here. So, you know, we're probably looking at about 210, 215 miles in 20 minutes of charging at a Tesla V3.5 Supercharger, which isn't nearly the fastest that the Gravity can charge at, which we're going to see really soon when I plug into the 350 kilowatt EVgo station. And now let's take a look at the time to charge chart with miles per minute overlaid. So you can see for the first 30 minutes of charging, the Gravity averaged more than 10 miles for every minute of charging. And this is on the Tesla Supercharger that's limiting the amount of power that the Gravity gets. So it's actually going to do much better than this once we get it on a 400 kilowatt and a 350 kilowatt DC fast charger. And finally, let's take a look at how long it takes to add miles of driving range. I'm not going to go through the whole chart here, but really quick. 100 miles, 9.3 minutes. 200 miles, 17.6 minutes. 300 miles in 26.7 minutes. And if the station wasn't limiting power, we probably would have done it in about 25 minutes. Next up, EVgo. Lucid brought another Gravity because this guy just got charged up at the Supercharger, and we're going to charge this vehicle that's next to me up to 100% from zero at a 350 kilowatt EVgo station. I'm interested to see how it reacts here because the Gravity can pull 400 kilowatts, and I know some of these EVgo stations will give you a little bit more than 350. So let's see how fast it charges on this station, and I'm going to compare that to Kyle's recording on the 400 kilowatt charge port station, which he did last night. So I'm interested to see what's the difference if you charge a Gravity on a 400 kilowatt station and a 350 kilowatt station, knowing that the vehicle can peak at 400 kilowatts. So let me plug in now, and I'm going to record the full 0 to 100% charge recording. So the Gravity's peak power draw of this session was 375 kilowatts, which we did at the 5-minute mark. Not bad for a 350 kilowatt charging station. And the Gravity went 0 to 25% state of charge in a blazing 5.5 minutes. That's amazing. And it was drawing 362 kilowatt at that time, and the station had dispensed 34 kilowatt hour. We hit 50% state of charge in 12.5 minutes, and we're still charging at 194 kilowatt, and the station's reporting 67 kilowatt hour delivered. 50% in 12 and a half minutes for a vehicle that can go 450 miles is just amazing. We hit 75% state of charge in only 24 minutes. That is 0 to 75% state of charge with a 123 kilowatt hour battery pack in 24 minutes. And the Gravity is still pulling 144 kilowatts at this time. And the EVgo station is reporting it's dispensed just under 100 kilowatt hour. 100 kilowatt hour in 24 minutes. Man, this thing charges like a beast. 80% state of charge came 3 minutes later, and we were still pulling 106 kilowatt, and the station's reporting that it delivered 106 kilowatt hour. 90% state of charge took only 36 minutes. Let that sink in for a minute. 0 to 90% in 36 minutes with a vehicle that can go 450 miles on a single charge. The Gravity's now pulling only 67 kilowatt, which is actually pretty good for 90% state of charge. And the station's reporting 119 kilowatt hour dispensed. From there, it took 39 more minutes until we were at 100% and the charger shut off, as it took about 20 minutes to go from 99% to 100%, while the Gravity carefully balanced all the battery cells. And that's not unusual when DC fast charging a vehicle with a very large battery like the Gravity's 123 kilowatt hour pack. That last 1 or 2% always takes a long time, but honestly, you shouldn't really stay at a DC fast charger to 100%. The Gravity, with the range that it gets and how fast it charges, there's no need to stay at the DC fast charger past 80%, in my opinion. So the final stats are just under 75 minutes from 0 to 100% on a 2025 Lucid Gravity, but it's important to note that it took longer to charge from 90% to 100% than it did from 0 to 90%. Further proving you don't want to hang out at a DC fast charger past 80% very often unless you absolutely need the range. I also want to point out here that the station shows it dispensed 134.1 kilowatt hour, but the Gravity itself shows that it took in 116 kilowatt hour. The difference there is about 18 kilowatt hour, and that's the charging losses that were incurred during the session. The Gravity reports the amount of energy that ended up into the pack, while the charger while the charger will always display and charge you for the total amount of energy that it dispensed for the session. There's always charging losses with DC fast charging, and typically you get slightly more charging losses the faster the vehicle charges because you lose more energy to heat. And now let's take a look at that charging session on paper with my charts and graphs. But again, I'm not going to do a deep analyzing of this right now. That's going to come in about a week. All right, so we're pulling 350 kilowatt about a minute or so after we plug in, and we peak at 375 kilowatt here at 21% state of charge. Look at how long the vehicle charged at over 300 kilowatts, all the way up to nearly 40%. And look at how long it charged at more than 200 kilowatts, almost up to 50%. And it actually would have been 50% if we didn't have this little dip here, which after talking to the Lucid folks, they believed it was a charging station and not the vehicle. Because what we should have seen was something closer to this. We shouldn't have this dip that you see in here. It should be more linear. And in that case, we would have had this extra energy here, which probably would have shaved another minute off the charging time up to 70%. In any event, it still is a great charging curve with all that power up there in the front and holding such a high charging rate deep into the pack. Next, let's take a look at the combined chart where we have the charging power curve and time to charge. First, let's take a look at the charging power curve. And man, look at all that power up in the first 12 minutes. Just amazing. We're at 50% state of charge after only 12 minutes of charging. And after only 24 minutes of charging, we're at 75% state of charge. Man, this is a great charging curve here, even with that little blip that you see up there where the station derated for a minute or two. All right, now let's take a look at the time to charge chart. After 10 minutes, we're at 43% state of charge. After 20 minutes, we're at 68% state of charge. And after half an hour of charging, we've gone from 0 to 84% state of charge. That's just incredible, especially when you factor in that this is a vehicle that can go 450 miles. That's EPA range, mind you. We're going to do our independent range tests on it sometime soon. But still, 450 miles EPA rated range, and you can get to 84% state of charge from a dead flat battery in 30 minutes. That's amazing. And now let's take a look at the range replenishing rate on my time to charge charts. These are actually the most important charts in my opinion because they tell people how long they have to charge for to get a certain amount of driving range, which after all is really all people care about. How long do I have to stay there to charge to get X amount of miles to make it to my destination? Okay, first up, this is the average range replenishing rate. And in this chart, we're talking about miles per minute. You could take a look here, the first 10 minutes of charging, 18.5 miles of EPA rated range added every minute of charging. Amazing. In the second 10 minutes of charging, it's still excellent with 11.2 miles of range added for every minute of charging. And in the third 10 minutes of charging, from the 20-minute point to 30 minutes, we had 7.3 miles of range added for every minute of charging. Now, it really drops off after a half an hour because now we're already over 85% state of charge. The charging rate slows up a lot. Look at how much it slows up. 4.2 miles of range added for every minute between 30 minutes and 40 minutes. So look at 40 to 50 minutes, only 2 miles. And from 50 to 60 minutes, it's 0.4 mile because that was the point. I think it was just at 99% state of charge the whole time. So this chart really helps you to look at when you should unplug and leave. And clearly with the Gravity, after 30 minutes of charging, and that's from 0% state of charge, it's time to unplug and move on. And if you're at a higher state of charge when you plug in, it's even less time. The average person probably shouldn't stay more than 20-25 minutes at a 350 kilowatt DC fast charger, because after that you get diminishing returns and it's just not worth hanging out and staying there. All right, next up, let's take a look at how long it takes to add miles of driving range. All right, 50 miles of EPA rated range gets added in a little under 3 minutes, 100 miles in 5.4 minutes, 150 miles in 8 minutes, 200 miles in 10.9 minutes, 250 miles, 15.2, 300 miles of EPA rated range in 20.1 minutes, 350 miles in 26 minutes, and you get 400 miles of driving range in about 35 and a half minutes. That is outstanding. And finally, this is my master charging chart for the Lucid Gravity. I do this for all the EVs that I do 0 to 100% charging sessions with, and this gives you every bit of data that you could need about DC fast charging the vehicle. Each one of those little blocks represents 10% of the charging session. So you could take a section of the charging session, any section you want, within a 10% block, say 20% to 40%, or 10% to 80%, or 30% to 40%, whatever you want to look at. And in each block, it'll give you the data for that specific section. It tells you how long it took, how much state of charge was added, how much added EPA range, the average power draw just for that specific session of the charging curve, and how much energy was added in kilowatt hours. I'm not going to go through these boxes now. We'll take a closer look at it when I do my deep charging analysis in about a week. But I wanted to put it up for those that are interested in this. They could take a snapshot of this and knock yourself out digging into the data. So Emad, I'm at the 350 kilowatt EVgo station now. This thing is a charging beast. I haven't plotted it all out on graphs yet, but I think you're going to take the crown as the best charging electric vehicle. I talked a little bit earlier about how the Air was the best if you just plugged it in at the very low state of charge, but the Taycan was better if you plugged it in later. This thing, I think it smokes the Taycan.
Oh, thank you so much. Of course, when you plot power versus SOC, you know, you get your charging curve that typically people show, but it's also important to show power versus time to see how long you're sustaining that power. Because if the energy capacity for Gravity is about 123, 125 kilowatt hours, that's even more impressive because you find yourself like from power time, which is how much energy added, is even much more impressive than if you plot power versus SOC. So yes, it's going to be the fastest charging EV from energy added point of view in time.
Yeah, I added 100 kilowatt hour in I think 24 minutes.
Yes.
And 300 miles of EPA rated range in, geez, I think it was 19 minutes and 20 seconds. 300 miles of range in under 20 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, this is a game changer.
Yeah,
you know, you hear a lot about fast charging in the world and other, you know, continents in China. And, you know, what we got in Gravity today, we can charge roughly 400 kilometers CLTC in about 8.5 minutes in a technology that exists here today in production. And with the charging infrastructure like behind us here, the EVgo, for example, charging and Electrify America, what is available today, which is quite actually astonishing, Tom. Don't you think 8.5 minutes, 400 kilometers CLTC? I know that cycle is a little bit forgiving, but that's what, for example, other manufacturers have been claiming.
It really is something. And this is real, and it's now. It's not what we're gonna see in the future, and it's not on chargers that aren't available. I know we talked about also charging it on a 400 kilowatt charger. They're starting to proliferate, but there's not a lot of 400 kilowatt hours. This is a 350, and this is what we were able to do. These are accessible. These are all over the place. All the Electrify America network, the EVgo network, they all have 350
and
kilowatt.
I remember, I think in our past podcast, Tom, I told you, the 400 kilowatt from significance point of view is important just to show the capability and the limits. However, we really focused on the charging curve more. And secondly, on the convenience and accessibility to charging. You know, we got the plug and charge with the Tesla Supercharger network working, and we got it with Electrify America, and we got it in one single Lucid account, and where we're gonna add more, features like subscriptions and demand and so on and so on. So, well, yeah, I think overall performance, convenience, access to customers is three of these attributes are really critical, and for the adoption of EVs, and we know charging is one of the biggest factors for adopting and growing EV sales.
It absolutely is. People are concerned, even though most of the time people will charge at home, but they don't want to be inconvenienced when they're on a long road trip.
Even one bad experience sometimes can change people's mind about that ownership experience.
I agree 100%.
Yeah.
This, as long as the equipment is working and you're at a charger that is charging, you literally are going to have barely enough time to plug your vehicle in, walk inside wherever you are, use a restroom and come out.
Or get an espresso, we call it. Get an espresso in 5 minutes and you get good to go. You get to go.
I mean, 200 miles came in about 10 minutes.
Yeah.
200 miles of driving range.
It's EPA range, but quite 70 miles per hour. This vehicle with the 21-inch wheels will be quite close to real world, which is quite,
Well, now that I've done the charge testing, it begs the question, when are you going to give me a vehicle for range testing?
Very soon.
Because I need that. I need my 70-mile-an-hour range test to do my equations, to talk about real-world range, miles per minute, and all that stuff. So I'll be looking forward to that.
Lucid has delivered always in their promise and our promises, and we will share with you the vehicles in the very near future. Tom, you deserve it to be
Listen, thanks for having me out here. Thanks for the time. This has been a great experience.
Thank you so much.
Good luck with Gravity.
We really appreciate your coming here. It's important that professional, independent media like you, Tom, are here to validate our claims, and I hope that your audience and the community of EV owners in general appreciate what we've been working on at Lucid. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely. So I'm going to get back home. I'm going to crunch all this data, make my charts and graphs and everything. I'm going to have multiple videos. This video is probably going to come up first, but then I'm going to put out my deep dive with all my charts, graphs, and all that stuff. So keep an eye out for those videos coming up next. And if it's your first time here at State of Charge, please hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you don't miss any upcoming electric vehicle news and reviews. And as always, thanks for watching.
Thank you.